This is a Radical Rant podcast. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Hot Tag Podcast. Adam, aka askcsradical, here with you guys. And we are going to talk about, as per usual, NWA Power, episode number 2, AEW Dark, episode 2, and AEW Dynamite's third episode, all from this week. But we are going to have some news to talk about to start this podcast off, so let's not waste any time. So, two things have come out, both related to Japanese wrestling. Originally, the first thing that I saw was that WWE had tried to purchase WrestlingNOAH, and with the plan to turn it into NXT Japan. That was the idea there. And a lot of people who do not know a lot of Japanese stuff, WrestlingNOAH was at one point the biggest promotion in all of Japan. Yes, that is going above New Japan Pro Wrestling. At one point, New Japan was kind of in a bit of a down period, and WrestlingNOAH in the, I want to say, if my memory serves me correctly, in the 90s specifically, early 2000s, they might have still had something going on. But that's when you had your Mitsuharu Misawas, your Kenta Kobashis, all of those guys from that era just having some of the best matches in pro wrestling at that point. I wasn't paying attention to really a lot of wrestling back in those days when they were live, so I didn't really get to catch a lot of it. But that was the big thing in pro wrestling. NOAH came out from that era. Has had a lot of trouble kind of getting back on its feet. It's been kind of consistently considered like the second promotion for a long time, in some cases even less than that. And it seemed like WWE thought was this going to be an opportunity to maybe throw some money out and try to, start something in Japan. Now, I guess their idea was, well, we're not going to just open up a new shop and then try to poach guys. I think they at least understand enough that you are not going to be able to go into Japan and just exist, especially when it comes to a foreign company. It doesn't matter if literally the entire roster is Japanese. Fans will know in Japan that it's not being run by a Japanese company. It's being run by an American company. And Japan is still very iffy when it comes to foreigners, specifically foreign influence. So you need something pretty big, and it needs to be very good, and it needs to be good for a while for Japan to respect it. I mean, Kenny Omega, it took him years to really get a good look from the Japanese audience. It took a long time. It took credibility. It took fantastic performance after fantastic performance. And I know WWE figures, well, if it's just our brand, we should be able to get past it. It's like, no, it's not the same. Not to mention that the Japanese market is so flooded with all these different federations, all these different types of wrestling, for that matter, that I don't think they're willing to step aside and let a foreign company suddenly start to take some heavy ground in there. And I don't think they're that interested. So that news came out, and my initial impression was, well, that was a bad idea. And WrestlingNOAH thankfully did not accept the offer. So at this point in time, WWE still doesn't have anything to go into Japan. I've seen a thing that looks like they want to go and have 6 different promotions. They want to have NXT, NXT UK, which they already have. NXT Japan seems to be their next aim. And it looks like they want us to have footing in India, in South America, and one that looked like Saudi Arabia as well. And I don't understand why that needs to be 6. In fact, I don't even know how South America would work, because it's not even Mexico, it's South America. We're talking like Brazil, we're talking Argentina. It's like, yeah, is there wrestling there? Of course there is. There's wrestling everywhere, but in a place like there, is there really enough to actually have an actual brand that you can put over there and put on television? I don't think there is, at least not for the quality that people would expect from WWE. So it's one of those weird things that I'm like, I don't know how they think that's going to work. But in terms of Japan, it's one of those things where, like, I don't understand why they think that's a good idea. I figure they just were like, well, New Japan is the next best thing here before AEW came along, so, Japan should be our next thing because we should try to take some of that market too. It's like, no, you're looking to go after a market that is not culturally interested in you. So ideally, this story never goes any further than that, and we don't see WWE trying to have a presence in Japan, because I don't think it'll work. The other piece of news is that STARDOM, which is arguably the best Joshi wrestling promotion in Japan, the best women's promotion in the world, quite possibly, they have been purchased by Bushiroad, which is the company that owns New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, this doesn't mean that it's a partnership, in the sense of you're not going to necessarily see STARDOM matches on every New Japan show. It seems like they're still going to run them separately, but Bushiroad is now the one with the purse strings. From what I understand too, Ogawa, who is the owner of STARDOM, is still going to be running the company itself. It's just now the purse strings, the pocketbook, is coming from a different place. And from the sounds of it, it seems like this was going to be the only option, because very much like what ECW was at one point, STARDOM was getting to a point where it was getting too big to be an indie, but it was not making enough money to become a Fed. That's the way it was looking. So for Bushiroad to step in and take this is fantastic news, especially for Joshi Wrestling. There are a lot of fantastic girls that have come out of there. I mean, two of them right now are, I believe they're still the tag team champions in WWE, the Kabuki Warriors in Asuka and Kairi Sane. You also have Io Shirai down in NXT. You know, a lot of fantastic women's wrestlers have come out of STARDOM, have come through Japan. Arguably, the best female wrestlers in the world right now are Japanese. I fully believe that Io Shirai and Asuka, to me, are 1 and 2. But that is also getting a little bit closer, because you have girls like Tessa who are just kicking ass right now. Becky Lynch is up there. You know, there's definitely stuff going on that is challenging, but to me, I think the best pound-for-pound pro wrestlers when it comes to women are still from Japan. And having an opportunity like STARDOM will now have, to have a very prominent television time, to have the potential of having the budget that Bushiroad can offer, even being able to link up with New Japan, really gives them a shot at pushing this beyond just, you know, a niche product, which is arguably what Joshi Wrestling is. Now, there's a very interesting premise that could come from this as well. Now, obviously, at this point in time, there is no relationship between AEW and New Japan. New Japan is still faithful to Ring of Honor. There was an interview that I saw recently, I think it might have even been today, that Kazuchika Okada, mentioned that if New Japan was to partner with AEW, he would be more than happy to work on that roster. So the door, at least, is there for an AEW New Japan partnership. And now, with them owning STARDOM, this opens up the possibility of another shot at AEW working with New Japan, and an added bonus of having the opportunity to pick from the STARDOM roster. Now, there is a very specific reason for that, and I will talk about it more when we get to Dynamite. But the gist of it now is that AEW is in dire need of some more women's wrestling, and I think Joshi is going to be where they're going to get the best names now, because most of the good names we have in North America are already locked up. So, in my opinion, this ownership now of STARDOM going to Bushiroad could open a very interesting door for AEW to go further, and we will see where that goes. So anyways, let's get on to our reviews of the 3 shows that I keep up with every week now. We will start with NWA Power, as we did last time. This show is to the point now that I am considering the idea of switching it out for MLW Fusion. I'm not there yet, but after this show, I still did not leave very excited for the next week. And I'm starting to understand that maybe this product is just something not for me. It maybe is for an audience that is more interested in that old 80s, you know, studio wrestling, a lot of short matches kind of deal. So far, I have not enjoyed this as much as I want to, and I've seen a lot of people go nuts about it, and I'm just not seeing it the same way that a lot of people are. But, you know, this episode was definitely better than the last one. I had a lot of trouble with all the squash matches from last week, but this time, there at least was some competitive matches. But the promos were not as strong as last week, so it's kind of a hit and miss. So the matches were better this week, but the promos were not. So we started off with a returning Aaron Stevens, that being the former Damian Sandow. I've seen people say that this was a very good promo. I actually believe it was the opposite. I don't think it went very well. It didn't seem to go over very well with the crowd. It felt like they were hijacking it a little bit. And the way that it seemed to be running is that he was trying to play the Hollywood Rock kind of road. Like he was trying to be the actor. You know, he's more important than pro wrestling now because he's a Hollywood actor, but he's coming back to wrestling because, you know, it's something he still likes. But he's kind of trying to be like, well, I'm so much better than I was when I left because now I'm a Hollywood guy, so you should treat me with more respect kind of deal. So it seems like he's trying to play the heel thing. But a lot of what he said to me came off like I'm not sure if he wanted to do this or if he felt like out of place or he didn't feel like it was something that he was latching on to. Because if he's going the Hollywood route, and based on how I perceive this interview, I think if he's such a good actor, maybe he could act his way out of these bad interviews that he could be having, because this first promo just sucked. I did not like it at all. First match we got was Ricky Starks defeating Trevor Murdoch with a crucifix pin. Very strange to see Trevor Murdoch in a wrestling ring again. It's been a long time. I imagine he's just been doing the independent circuit for a long time since him wrestling with the, what's the word I'm looking for? The dead Lance Cade. I don't understand why I can't figure out what the word I'm thinking is. But his partner Lance Cade obviously passing away. I can't remember how many years ago it was. Was it only a couple? It feels like it might have been recent, but I could be wrong. But again, it was very strange seeing him in a ring just because it's been so long, and he's gotten bigger, that's for sure. But I guess in an 80s retro show, it actually kind of works for him. I didn't like the comment that was said during the commentary, and I believe this was Cornette, saying Murdoch left the WWE because there were no men. And this is the point where I think NWA Power is starting to lose it on me a little bit, because throughout this show, because you remember the first promo with Nick Aldous and the same with Eli Drake. They both did this is a company with men, grown men, tough men. And then the opponent that Murdoch's facing is kind of looking a little bit of a kid. I mean, I know Ricky Starks is not a young guy, but he still has the look of one. And my brain's like, okay, he looks like every WWE guy that Murdoch would have been facing, so what's the difference here? So that comment didn't go over very well. But like I said, Ricky Starks does win. He does what to me was a very cringy, like I'm sexy, promo. I think he calls himself, what was it? Stroke something? It was definitely Stroke something. I can't think of it right now. This is how much I'm troubling myself to pay attention here, but it was cringy. I imagine it was probably on purpose because, I mean, he's supposed to be like the I'm hot, you're not kind of character, but it still didn't go very well with me. So again, another promo that just didn't go very well. Next match was Colt Cabana and his mystery partner, which turned out to be Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson, defeating Sal Rinauro, who was squashed in the first match from the first episode of Power against the Dawsons, and then Jordan Kingsley was his partner. So the pre-match interview, like I said, Colt Cabana came out. He introduced Ken Anderson as his partner. Now, it was strange because, again, after the tough men, grown men comment, to have Cabana out there doing his comedy. Now, I love Colt. I really do. It's just strange how this promotion, so far in the first two shows, has tried to play the grown men card. And then you have Colt, who is one of the cheesiest guys in the business. And then I still love the pre-match interview because when Anderson came out, of course, he still did his Mr. Anderson. And then Cabana would just suddenly walk and be like, Cabana! And just like half like cracking a smile and trying to keep it together. That was pretty funny. But again, it feels like it's not matching this style that they're putting on here. But the match itself was okay. I mean, it's what you expect from Colt's kind of comedy wrestling. All the sounds that he makes, his whipping the guy into the ropes and then doing the stop and then does something else, but it was all right. There was another one of those parody commercials, this being a guy named Tony Falk. And this one was definitely where there was no question whether it was a parody or fake commercial, unlike the Austin Idol Wrestling School one, because he was talking about how he was opening up a waffle and tire iron place, and I'm like, oh dear. Okay, so we definitely know that it's a legit, parody and a fake commercial, which was fine. It was kind of funny. We had a promo with Eddie Kingston and Homicide. Same as I said last week, I love the intensity that Eddie Kingston brings. They were going to be having a match with the Wildcards at the main event of this night. But before that, we got Allison Kay against Ashley Vox. So, Ashley Vox again. So, this whole thing about taking things seriously, Ashley Vox coming out with mermaid trunks. Looks like the mermaid pants that you see that get sold, and she basically just cut them down into trunks. So, again, the very childish look to it. Allison Kay had the Jericho-esque cocky pin. I'm sure Jericho's going to be making some phone calls to trademark some shit there. But Vox was actually pretty competitive in the match until Allison Kay won with what I can only describe was like a sit-down deadeye. Like if you look at what Adam Page does in AEW, it was kind of like that. But again, it was a good match. Like that was actually, quite honestly, the better match on the entire card, in my opinion. So James Storm comes out, does an interview. Allison Kay did like a really brief post-match thing, by the way, but it wasn't really anything special. It was just her saying, hey, Ash, you did a good job out there, but as long as I'm the champion, you ain't getting shit kind of deal. So nothing too special there. James Storm comes out to do a promo. He talks about how the national title to him is nothing but a stepping stone to being the world's heavyweight champion, because to him that belt means he is next in line. Eli Drake comes up, tells Storm that, yeah, you know what? You are next in line because you are holding that national title. So go for that title. But whatever happens, whether you win or lose, remember him. Remember Eli Drake, because he wants to be next in line for that national title, because he wants to be next in line for the 10 pounds of gold. We got a repeat of that Austin Idol School commercial, so that's where I'm starting to see the parody in here. The main event, the wild cards of Royce Isaacs and Tom Latimer against Eddie Kingston and Homicide. Again, I mentioned last week about the really weird trunks that Isaacs has. And this time he wore the same boots, but he went to bright green trunks. So now he went from really shitty trunks to just really shit color matching because it looked terrible. And also at one point I kept looking at him, I'm like, is this guy wearing blush? Like, what is this guy's character supposed to be? I'm not sure what's going on with him. But in the end, the match seems like it's leaning with Kingston and Homicide, but the Dawsons, who did the initial squash match at the beginning of the first show, they come in, ruin the match, so you get a DQ, they attack both teams, basically saying this is our house, pretty usual finish to a match when it's guys just trying to prove themselves. The actual show, though, ends with an interview with Nick Aldous and Camille, this being from the Nick Aldis calling out the announcer, which I think is Joe Galley or something like that, and saying that, I'm not going to answer any questions if you're going to ask just nothing but what Camille is thinking right now, so because I don't want you going with your clickbait writing. As expected, they have a sit-down interview with the two of them. Aldis gets defensive, as you would expect, and Camille does actually get a chance to talk, but she still doesn't, which leads you to assume that Aldis has been telling her to shut the fuck up before the interviews, although it wasn't obvious. It's not like he was telling her to stop in the interview. He just sat there, she didn't say anything, and then eventually just cut in and be like, well, what you see here is this, blah, blah, blah. So like I said, the show itself, again, was not great. I'm probably going to give this one more crack at it. And if it's still the same kind of result, then maybe it's time to cut loose. Maybe take a look at MLW Fusion and try to do something else, or maybe just stick with the two AEW shows, but we'll see from then on. But as I stand after 2 episodes, I'm not too psyched about it. And it may, like I said, just be that this is a product that is not designed for what I'm looking for right now. It could just be as simple as that. But clearly a lot of other people are loving the hell out of it, so that's fucking awesome because, again, more options, and that is more important than anything else. All right, so next up we got AEW Dark. So at the beginning of the show, we get a little promo with the Bucks and Kenny in the locker room together. He was pissed off that he did not get a match on Dynamite that week. Now this is talking about the week prior. And they're saying, well, Kenny, you got put through a glass table. Like, come on. And he's like, you know what? I'm sick of this. So you know what? I set myself up with a match. I'm going to go one-on-one with Joey Janella, and I don't want it sanctioned. I want no holds barred and want everything. And you see the Bucks going, Kenny, no. And Kenny's like, nope, fuck you. I'm not listening. So that was our main event, and we will get to that shortly. First match on AEW Dark, though, was Sonny Kiss going up against Kip Sabian and Peter Avalon. So at the beginning, Avalon cut a promo as he walked out. He made a pretty good shot at Red Sox fans, saying at least he's competing in October, which was good. But then he keeps taking sports jabs. So he's talking about the Patriots, he's talking about the Bruins, and you could tell the crowd at that point was just like, all right, motherfucker, just get in the ring. Let's get this going. Sonny Kiss was definitely beloved by the fans when he came out. Sabian even like taking a playful like look at Sonny during the entrance, making you wonder. It's like, but you kind of, I can understand it. I mean, right? Like you see Sonny's ass. Like, come on, who isn't looking, right? But the running joke early in the match was that every time Avalon would try to get involved, either Sabian or Kiss would just throw him out. But Avalon actually did better than I was expecting. I mean, when he had his match with Sonny Kiss at Fight for the Fallen, I'm like, okay, Avalon's got a little bit something here, but it definitely seemed like Avalon was getting a little bit more of a reaction during this match than his promo was, so it seemed like fans were starting to get a little bit more interested in what was going on. They were really behind Sonny Kiss. Sabian was kind of the odd man out for a little bit. At one point, Sabian does a dive to the outside, and it looks like he might have hurt his finger. The doc was checking on him. I don't know if they popped something back in its socket. He continued the entire match, though. It's hard to tell if the injury was real, if they were just selling it, but my brain tells me that if the doc actually came over, that there actually was something, so maybe he just dislocated a finger, they popped it back in, or maybe he fractured it, or maybe he just pulled it a little bit off, and they just wanted to check if anything was broken. But he did end up winning with the Deathly Hallows, so Sabian has quietly been accruing a decent record. He's been winning. I think he only has one loss, and that was the one to Paige at Fight for the Fallen. So it's definitely making it seem like, okay, the guy's like quietly working his way forward. And this is a guy too that very much like Sammy Guevara, that I can see being a much bigger deal in a few years once these guys get some extra work in, they get a chance to really get a character going. And, some of the guys like, say, a Jericho, Omega, Cody, like they start slowly winding down a little bit. But yeah, he's a guy that I actually do like a lot. So the next match was the Dark Order and the Hybrids, that being Jack Evans and Angelico, going up against the full team of SCU and Shima. This match, the intro was weird because, and again, I keep having to talk about it, but the audio during the entrances needs to fucking change, and this will go into AEW Dynamite. Apparently, some people were saying it got a little bit better, they were louder, but they're not feeding it through an auxiliary channel. They're still feeding it through the crowd mics, through the audio mics in the arena, and it doesn't make the song play well. It just, you cannot hear the beats, you cannot hear the lyrics, so you're not getting the full track. So, but during this entrance, something different happens. So at one point, you see Jack Evans mouthing off to the camera. There's no audio coming through, so you don't even know what he's saying. You're just assuming he's talking trash. This match, I will fully admit that I really didn't watch much of. I was kind of glancing at my laptop a good chunk of the time while I was watching it. I just kept finding myself looking down and looking at something else. There wasn't anything that I saw in this match that I would have pointed out. I think it was just your standard 8-man tag where guys are just getting a chance to show their stuff, per usual things that you saw. In the end, Jack Evans does get the win over Scorpio Sky, who is taking the fall. They do a double low blow to a roll-up. So both him and Angelico kicked Sky in the nuts and the roll-up, and that was the match. Before our main event, we had a small interview little segment called Undesirable to Undeniable. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a consistent thing they do, but this was an interview with Cody talking with Aubrey Edwards, the female referee. It was basically like a becoming something out of nothing sort of thing. It was just basically an empowerment sort of video. Obviously, they want to play the PR game very well. And I do like, though, because thankfully I haven't seen these comments, but I'm glad that Aubrey is being moved from match to match and not in a specific spot. Like, she's not automatically doing the women. She's not automatically doing every main event. It seems like they're putting everything almost like a raffle draw. So one night Bryce Remsburg might get the main event, or maybe Rick Knox, or maybe it's Earl Hebner, or maybe it's Aubrey Edwards. Although I don't think I've seen Earl on TV yet. I think he might just be the pay-per-views. I'm not sure. But I like the fact that with Aubrey specifically, because it would be so easy. WWE would absolutely do this, where they would just have her constantly reffing the women's matches, constantly going after main events, just to be like, see what we're doing. Whereas, AEW is just like, she's just another member of the referee team. So she'll be in some matches, she'll be in others. So I'm glad how they're handling this. But the main event, Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela, unsanctioned, no holds barred, lights out, whatever you may call it. This was a fucking incredible match. And to give this away for free, a lot of people would comment on this match on Reddit, Twitter, wherever the fuck. How the hell did they think about giving this match away for free? To which my response is, why would you not want to give this match away for free? Because if you want to advertise a product, you put this match on for free on YouTube where anybody can see it, they're going to be like, holy shit, if I get to see this, man, I want to watch what the hell they're doing. So, a lot to talk about here. So these are just a few of the things that I noted. So at one point, Kenny did the tope somersault. I think it's a tope con hero where you do the somersault to the outside. But he did the tope, and he overshot hard. Basically, like where his kneecaps would have been landed on the top of the rail. That looked like it looked bad. Like the back of his head may have even hit the floor too. It looked fantastic if you're looking for like action, but man, like as a pain thing, I'm like, ooh, that didn't look fun at all. The beginning was slow to start, and I think that was intentional because once you got to the last 10-15 minutes, it was just constant. Like that tope thing was the one real like notable thing for the first about 5 to 10 minutes of the match. And then stuff started going. So, one point, and Janella was taking the most of this. Janella took a Snapdragon suplex on the apron. That didn't look great. Right after that, though, he did suplex, like really sloppily German suplexed Kenny from the ring steps to the floor. That didn't look great. Now, an annoying thing during this match that I pointed out. The fans were chanting, "We can't see," which we've heard them do before in that match with Kenny and Shima, where they were going out they were like out in the crowd brawling and the fans couldn't see from certain angles. So when they shifted to the logo, people were getting mad because they couldn't see the feed, so they couldn't see what was going on where you couldn't see it in the ring. But the fans were chanting, "We can't see," when the action was in the ring. So my brain's like, what's the problem here? You can see it. It's in the ring. If you can't see it, sorry that your seats must suck, but I mean, you're supposed to be looking at the ring, not the screen. Sorry, but if you're paying money to go look at the screen when a match is in the ring, why are you there? Go home and watch it on TV. Or in this case, YouTube. But that was just a little bit weird. So at one point, Janela sets up a table. He brings in a ladder as well. He throws Kenny on the table. He gets to the top of the ladder, does a little shimmy like Eddie would do before he went for the frog splash. Janela misses, so he goes to the table solo. It was a nice little a nice little nod to Eddie because I believe his birthday was not too long ago. Around this point, the crowd was like half dead. You could tell like they were so worn out from Dynamite in this match. So like there were points where it was very quiet, and then like spots like getting thrown to the ladder wouldn't elicit much of a reaction, but the big spots would still do it. So it was a very weird dichotomy of things. Like you would have what normally in a match would get a response, not getting a response. So it took something that was big, like the frog splash through a table, to get the crowd going. One point near the end of the match, Omega used Moxley's moveset, so he did the weird, the bounce back like clothesline, where he falls into the ropes, does the weird like half flip, and then shoots himself back in the ring with the clothesline. He did that. He also used the paradigm shift, which was the old Dirty Deeds or the Death Rider in New Japan, but that got a near fall. And eventually when Janela goes for... He set up 4 chairs, so 2 back-to-back. So there was 2 chairs back to back, 2 chairs back to back. So it was creating like a line. Like he was going to try to slam him on the edges of the top of the chair. Kenny grabs Janella instead, throws him onto the edges. That didn't look like fun. But he does land on his feet and like falls into the corner where there was already a chair set up. So Kenny does the V trigger to Janella's head into that chair into the corner. And then One Wing Angel on the chair, which the chair didn't buckle. So when Janella hit it, he hit the chair. The chair fell back, as did Janella, and Kenny does get the 1, 2, 3. So, whew, it was a hell of a match. That was for damn sure. And that kind of stuff going for free, that is fantastic. And from what I understand, there's the main event from Dark that's going to be coming up next Tuesday, which was, I believe, an 8-man tag. I think it was the Bucks, Cody, and was it? No, it wasn't Hangman. Maybe it was Dustin. Might be wrong. And they were facing, I can't remember who all it was. But apparently that main event, which was an 8-man tag, was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, AEW Dark for a free show. You gotta love that stuff. Fantastic. So we'll finish off here with AEW Dynamite. So another episode. The ratings did drop a little bit again. Not nearly as much as the previous week, but they still dropped. It's a lot of people were figuring it was going to be better because the Yankees-Astros game was canceled due to rain, so there was nothing really fighting it. But it really shows to me that I think it's less what's on and more I think people are just not habitually ready to go for wrestling every week, especially when it's still in the early stages of people still kind of overcoming what WWE has kind of ruined when it comes to SmackDown and Raw being so difficult to watch every week. AEW shows have been fantastic, but I think for a lot of people, getting into the habit of watching something every Wednesday is going to be a challenge. But they still finished top 5 in the key demographics, so for TNT, they're probably still over the moon that they finished with over 1 million views and they hit number 5 in the key demos. So it's like they're still pretty damn happy about it, I would imagine. So the first match on the card was the quarterfinal matchup between SCU and the Best Friends. So as you remember, it was supposed to be Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian being the members of SCU. But as they came out to the ring, the Lucha Brothers took out Daniels and Kazarian, and Daniels took a package pile driver on the ramp. Now, I think Kazarian took his back into the ring post, so they played up that his back was hurting the entire time. So Daniels is getting stretchered out, so Sky rushes down to help out. He's in street clothes. He's in his shoes and jeans, like he's not dressed up. But the match has to start right away, so Scorpio's like, well, you got to let me in. You can't just disqualify us. I mean, I'm part of SCU. I can get in there. So they let him in, so he's just wrestling in jeans and shoes, which we've seen done. But at one point, he loses a shoe. So he's now in one shoe and a sock. And he does all these crazy moves, all these dives to the outside. And he's doing it with one shoe on. Eventually, he kicks it off. A fan tosses it back into the ring, but he wrestles a good chunk of the match left with no shoes on at all. Now, obviously, guys will wrestle in bare feet. We've seen guys like Rusev and Matt Riddle do it. I imagine with socks, it gets even more interesting because I think you can slip a little bit more with that. But either way, the fans were absolutely adoring Sky by the end of this match. There wasn't too much notable in terms of movesets. Other than, like I said, Sky doing some crazy dives with one shoe on, which, again, fans were going nuts for. Eventually, SCU manages to hang in there, and they get the powerbomb to... Kazarian tried to powerbomb, and I think they were going for a powerbomb to dropkick. I'm not sure what happened, because it looked like Sky kind of sloppily almost did like a Meteora knee strike instead. I'm not sure what was going on. They called it a dropkick. It didn't really look like one. But either way, SCU does get the victory, so they will be facing the Dark Order in the semifinal next week. Speaking of tag teams, there was actually a lot of tag team wrestling on this match. In fact, only 2 matches on this entire card were singles. There's going to be a lot of tag team wrestling next week as well. So we had a squash match, which I wasn't expecting to see on AEW. There was a good chunk for a while where I'm thinking they're just going to have them wrestle guys. It's just going to be straight up matches every week. But Santana Ortiz come out to face the team of Alex Reynolds and John Silver. Like I said, just a basic squash match. Santana Ortiz just basically destroy them, end with a street swinger. And at the end, Jericho goes on screen, congratulates Santana Ortiz, like, oh yeah, my boys. And, talks about the Bucks, how Santana Ortiz need to go after the big time. And he challenges Bucks to face the team of Santana Ortiz, who I believe they're calling Pride and Powerful. I don't know if that's their actual team name or that's just kind of like their slogan because that's what they had on their t-shirts. But the idea is we will be seeing the Bucks up against Santana and Ortiz at Full Gear. That'll be quite a fun match to watch. Next up, we had the women's AEW World Women's Championship match between Rhea and Britt Baker. I'm just going to say it. This match was not good. It was better by the end, but in the very early going, Britt Baker showed her green. She was very green in this match. It looked very terrible early on. Nothing really of note here, to be honest. I mean, Rhea's over with the crowd. I mean, that much is very obvious, but Baker goes for the lockjaw. Rhea managed to roll her up, get the win. So Rhea wins with another roll-up. That surprises, and the fans go a little bit apeshit for that. So, I mean, cool. Rhea's doing her job as being a really good babyface, and there's no questioning that. But this match has served to show me now that after a number of opponents for her, aside from Shida, there is clearly not a lot of people in this division that's going to work in terms of pro wrestling. I really don't like Allie. I think Brandy is better off as being a foil that you don't see very often. Awesome Kong is only part-time. You have Britt Baker, who is just not looking great. Nyla Rose has already lost all credibility because she can't even beat small people in the ring. There's very few people. Like, Emi Sakura is a good hand, but, I don't see her doing very much. The only other person on the roster, other than Shida, that I can see really putting a dent in things right now is Yuka Sakazaki, and we're not seeing her that often either. Bea Priestley's fine, but I expected more from her, and she hasn't really delivered so far. We haven't really seen much of Sadie Gibbs yet either. So there's a lot of women on this roster that either should not be here or we haven't seen enough of. And it's showing that this women's division here in AEW needs a lot of work. To the point that I think they need to start trying to concentrate more on characters and storylines than they are in the actual action in the ring for now. Unless you have a match like a Rhea and a Sakazaki where their sizes match, or somebody like Shida that can pull some more stuff off, but they need talent. And like I said earlier, with STARDOM getting bought out by New Japan, the potential for AEW working with New Japan suddenly becomes even more interesting because that's access to a division that could really help their women's division. Getting some of the STARDOM girls in there because they're fantastic wrestlers in there. Now, I don't think Mayu Iwatani would be one of them because from what I understand, Mayu does not want to move to North America. And if she was going to go to AEW, they would want her to be a star. They would not want her to be a part-timer. So I don't know if they could justify that. And I don't know if Mayu would want to because, again, I don't think she wants to go to the States constantly. So I don't think that's an option. But you still have people out there like Starlight Kid, like Hana Kimura, like Kazuki. Like there's a bunch of them out there that could be very fun and could be very interesting and could work good matches with more of these Joshi girls, which I think is a better option for your women's division. Make your women's division a lot like the cruiserweights. Have stuff that people have not seen before, but you can throw other girls in there that are American or from Europe or whatever that can still work. But your focus should be on getting, here's this good Joshi wrestling that's hard-hitting, a lot of action, something that you haven't seen before. Because unless AEW can sign Tessa Blanchard away from Impact, their division is going to be very quiet for a while. Because there's not, as far as I know, and I don't know too much about the indies in North America, but there are not a lot of women out there that are at the level that can go on a big show like this because WWE's pretty much already signed them all. Unless they go through the leftovers of the Mae Young Classic, which, you know what, since we have, how much time have I gone through here? We got 40 minutes in? Screw it. Let's go through the Mae Young Classics and see who they could still take. Now, Mercedes Martinez was the Joker in the Casino Battle Royale for the women, so that would definitely be one that I'd be curious about. So let's go through the first year. So let's see. Who could work? Abby Lath is not in NXT. That could be one they go after. Most of them have been signed. I know Marty Bell is with NWA, so that's not an option. Rachel so that's Rachel Ellering. That could maybe be one they could look at. Santana Garrett, I believe. Is Santana Garrett signed to NXT? I don't know if she is. Let's see here. Click her. Is she actually signed with them? She is. Oh, so apparently she is on NXT. Oh, that's right. She got signed very recently. We just haven't seen her on TV yet. Other than that, there's not a whole lot from the first one. I mean, you could get Serena Deeb as like a veteran, but there wasn't a lot from the first year. The second year now, Big Swole, I think, is somebody I would want them to go for. That was Ariel Monroe. That's one I would look at. I don't know what Madison Rayne is doing, if she's still going, if she still wants to go. That would be one that, if she wanted to, I think you could make that work. Let's see. I think Deonna Purrazzo is in NXT. Yeah, she signed. For the most part left on this list, I think Killer Kelly's in NXT UK. Yep, that's the case. You're not going to get Meiko Satomura. I don't think you're going to get her for that long. Nicole Mathews, I believe, is not. No, she isn't. She wasn't too bad. I actually liked her. She was a good, asshole character. Priscilla Kelly, I think, is one that I would not be surprised if they go after. I think she's in a relationship with Darby Allin, so there's already a connection there. And as I go through everything else, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's Atara and Zeusis, who are the two South American ones. I didn't like either of them, to be honest. Other than that, there was Vanessa Craven, who I think had a great look. I don't know if she plans on wrestling for much longer. As I'm looking at her now, she's 37. I don't know how much longer she's looking at going, or if she even wants to commit to that. But all in all, in terms of North American women that I'm even aware about, I don't see that much. So they need to, for the time being, maybe focus on getting the women over through their characters rather than the pro wrestling, because so far, I still think the best women's match they've had since becoming AEW was the 6-man Joshi tag. Honestly, that's my opinion. But anyways, let's get to the rest of the show here. So the second of two quarterfinal matchups was the Lucha Brothers up against the Jurassic Express. Now, I don't know how this match was supposed to go, because Luchasaurus is out with a hamstring injury. So he missed this match. We have now found out he is going to be out 6 months. Man, that poor bastard. Because he was becoming a massive star in this company. And he still will when he comes back. I think the fans are going to take to him a lot. But man, I feel so bad for him because he was doing so well. We don't know how he injured himself. I haven't even heard specifically what happened, if he tore something. It's just said hamstring injury at this point. But so it ended up being Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt. And as you would have expected, there was no beating if the Lucha Brothers lost to Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt, as much as I love the Jurassic Express, you can't justify that. That's not even Private Party beating the Bucks is believable. I could not see Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy taking out the Lucha Brothers, because Pentagon and Phoenix on their own are two of the better guys on that roster. But the match itself wasn't anything really to speak of. I mean, it seems like the Lucha Brothers are going much more heel now. Even Phoenix is being a bit of a cocky asshole in this, so maybe that's what they're trying to do here. But all in all, it was just Stomp Package Pile Driver to Stunt, match is over. So it's going to be Lucha Brothers and Private Party, and then it'll be SCU and Dark Order. Because of what's happened with the Lucha Brothers and SCU, I have to believe that it's going to be those two in the final at this point. That just has to be it. Now, assuming that's the case, I'm still sticking with my option of it being SCU winning. That's who I think is going to be the first champs. So that's where I'm going with it. I mean, would it be cool to see Private Party go to a final? Yes, but I think they more just want to get them a bit of a rub by beating the Bucks. And the Dark Order, I think there's no reason for them to go to the final, because if they're going to face the Lucha Brothers, it's going to be basically two teams against each other. And as much as I love the Dark Order, I love me some Super Smash Brothers, but they're not getting over with the crowd right now, so putting them in the final is not going to be a great look. So I think SCU and Lucha Brothers make sense. I think that's why they've been doing all these little things here. But that's what we're looking at. So, second last match on the card was Hangman Page and Kenny Omega taking on Pac and Jon Moxley. All 4 guys over in this match. Bunch of spots to look over here. Page took a really, really brutal looking somersault bump from the turnbuckle to the apron. That didn't look fun. Looked like he landed spine first on the edge. That, oof. As a guy who once the Blue Moon gets a little pain in his lower back, I can't imagine the pain that he's feeling after that. But after a bunch of back and forth, the major thing is that Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley go out to the outside. They grab their barbed wire weapons again. Why the barbed wire broom and bat are under the ring, I will never know. Pac interrupts it again. He throws the broom out, but when he throws the bat out, I think he grabbed it too close to the barrel where the barbed wire was. So when he threw it, he sliced up his finger, and it was very obvious right from the very beginning. As soon as he threw it out, though, Moxley hit the paradigm shift on Pac. At that point, Pac has his hands on the mat just trying to get up, and that's where it's blatantly obvious that the guy's gushing blood out of his finger. I hope he's okay. Hope he didn't slice something too bad there. But eventually, Omega hits him with a V-trigger. Page hits the Deadeye, and that is the victory. That was a very fun match. And last but not least, we get to the definite best match on the card this week for AEW Dynamite. That being the main event between Chris Jericho and Darby Allin for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Jericho coming out with the Painmaker clown makeup that we've seen him wear in New Japan, so this is seemingly his way of being like, all right, it's a hardcore match, I'm going to put on my hardcore face. Or maybe he's just making fun of Darby's makeup, not sure. Right early on in the match, if you remember, who was it that he did this to? Was it Cody? It might have been Cody, or it would have been the match after that. But Darby did that same crazy Irish whip to the ring post spot where instead of going into the turnbuckles, he goes sideways up against the ring post and flies out to the ring. My God, how has that guy not broken his back doing that spot? There were kendo sticks and chairs, but then eventually, after all that, he tapes Darby Allin's wrists behind his back. And at first, I knew they were going to do chair shots to the head, but I still was getting Rock and Foley I Quit match flashbacks where Foley took all those unprotected chair shots while he was handcuffed. But this was different. Now, Jericho did get a lot of offense in, but at some point, Darby got out of it. He did a lion salt without his hands, and then a suicide dive without his hands. And then back in the ring, he climbed again to the top rope without his hands and did, I'm assuming Jeff Hardy's Whisper in the Wind, again, without his hands. So he keeps going, goes back up to the top rope, again, no hands, goes for the coffin drop, but Jake Hager comes out, gives him a shot, knocks him down. Jericho wins with the Lion Tamer, or the Walls of Jericho, depending on which way you look at it. Surprised he didn't go for the Judas effect there. But Jericho does win with the Lion Tamer, which I'm kind of disappointed by. This is the other reason why I would have preferred the Judas effect. Throughout the match, Shivani and Ross were talking about Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross. Jeez, I felt weird calling them Shivani and Ross for a minute there. They were talking about how Darby Allin would never quit because the guy loves pain, because he takes it so well. And then he tapped out pretty quickly to the Lion Tamer. So that was a little bit strange. So that kind of didn't tell the story that they were telling, for a while. But like I said, Jericho does win. Everybody from the Inner Circle comes down and they celebrate. I'm going to take a second here to prepare my voice with a little bit of the bubbly. And that's how we end it off. There's no big brawl at the end. Nice to have at least 1 week in the first 3 weeks of the show not ending in a massive colossal brawl. But that is the end. So, all in all AEW again with another fantastic week of shows. Best match between the two shows from this week was obviously the Kenny Omega and Joey Janela unsanctioned match. But if you're looking at the television shows itself, like I said, Jericho and Darby Allin was a fantastic match. Just because of Darby, the way, I am so over on this guy. This guy, if he can stay healthy, is going to be a massive fucking star in about a year to 2 years' time when you got guys like Paige really going through the ranks and MJF going up there. Those three guys right now are set to be three of the top guys if this company is still running as hard as they are in 2 years. For sure. Because Darby is way over. If Luchasaurus can do what he's doing, maybe he can even go on his own for a little bit. And you get those four, that's a pretty good four that I think the fans are really taken to. So, all in all, after 3 weeks, there ain't no stopping me from watching AEW. I am looking forward to every week. And the fact that I'm not even worried about what WWE is doing now. I don't even know when their next pay-per-view is. I don't know when it is. I don't know what show it is. I don't know if it's Survivor Series. I don't know what the fuck it is. And I don't care. Because AEW has managed to do something that I didn't think was possible. They've managed to completely pull me away from WWE. Now, will I be there in the Rumble? Yes. I'm always watching the Rumble because I love the suspense and the surprise of the Rumble. But the real question is going to be what happens with WrestleMania. Because I'm kind of done with WrestleMania. I've been disappointed for the last 3 years. And if I have no interest in the product over this time, there's a pretty good shot that I might actually not even think about watching WrestleMania this year. Because AEW has been that damn good. So, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching or listening, depending on where you're getting this from. So if you are on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more stuff, comment below. If you are listening from any audio service that you're getting this, if you have the ability to give this a 5-star rating or any sort of rating, please do so. Again, share this with people that you think would be interested in this kind of material. And same deal, if you want to comment about it, you can also reach me at Twitter at @csradical, Instagram at @CS_radical. And, you know, for 3 weeks into this new promotion, I'm fucking over the moon about it. Cannot wait for next week. And I hope you guys can't either. So when we go through that stuff the following week, I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.